The information provided on Dr. Tom Roselle Live by Dr. Tom Roselle, D.C., interview guests, show co-hosts, or substitute hosts is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. It is for general information purposes only. Information from this broadcast should not replace the appropriate consultation and examination process by a licensed physician. Always consult your own physician prior to changing any current medical directive or prescription.
Dr. Tom Roselle Live, right now, on 105.9 FM WMAL.
Welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. This is Dr. Tom Roselle, live in studio, waiting to take your calls on anything you'd like to talk about your health, that you've had a problem, you've tried, you've applied, you've done everything you can think of and come up with all those things that really don't work. Well, here's your opportunity. Call us, 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-9625. Love to talk to you on this beautiful Washington day. We've had a run of really amazing weather. Awful hot, that is, but nevertheless, it's a whole lot better than, 10 below zero and a lot of snow outside and can't see the sun. And so I'm in. I'm good with this. Except if you're in New York and you get brownouts, the night before. But, that's not Virginia, so we're good to go. We have a repeat encore performance today. What are we talking about? Well, last week in studio you had my boss, Sue Roselle, and we were talking about how to live in a toxic environment because we were standing in for the lazy Dr. Scott Lamp. I mean, the vacationing Dr. Scott Lamp, who, wasn't in the area. But many of you said...
Family needs attention.
Never
mind,
Dr. Scott. Never mind. I was just about to build you up, but since we're not going to do that. No. Anyway, we had many of you that said that you wanted to make sure you could attend this. And because you're on vacation, like Dr. Scott was, and, we're doing that because you asked. So this Wednesday evening, the 17th of July at 7 p.m. at the Roselle Center for Healing, we're going to be talking about how to live in a toxic environment. I'm not going to do it. Dr. Scott is. So, Dr. Scott, let's move forward and talk about this thing a little bit. And you and I have discussed a whole lot of different pieces, but the truth of it is that we're bombarded constantly by all kinds of things that are around us, and we don't even realize that we're making it sick. So, if you were to kind of framework this and say, people, you're sick because, and these are the things that you got to watch out for, what would that look like?
Well, anything that touches yourself and the environment, from breathing something in to touching it and putting it on your body, to experience the stressful situations with it, to unseen things that go through our bodies, that like EMFs. You talked about that before in the previous program. We'll probably talk a little bit more in depth today. And what you can do with those things. So basically, anything interacting with your environment, there's so much pollution in so many different ways. You were talking on the way in about molds in the area of the D.C. area. People move in this area and they get sick. There's also ways that the wind patterns and also things kind of accumulate some of the pollution around this area. And then when you add that with multiple things like, how's the stress mechanism in this area? I don't want to say anything about politics there, but there's a lot of multiple things that hit us on both our chemical, our physical, emotional element, and also, you could start making some arguments. How's our genes come into play? Sometimes some people are more susceptible than others, depending on your gene play. So all those come into play to make sure how we handle this environment that's in front of us.
Sue and I last week talked a lot about the exposures from things that we have no control of, including inoculations and vaccines and things of that nature, and the runoffs from everything that's been put into our food sources and the things that we breathe into. And, we talked about how damaging certain toxic elements such as metals and things of that nature. You and I talked a little bit about something called the brain glymphatic system, GLYM, glymphatic system, which people are going to say, lymphatic. I don't even know what lymphatic is.
Right.
And I want to get into that a little bit because this is important, because we're seeing an exponential rise. And you took me by surprise in the car on the way up. I said, you got to be kidding. I haven't seen that. the exponential rise in dementia and neurodegenerative diseases over a period of several years. And we were guessing, what is it, 50%, 75%? And then you hit me with a number, and I said, you got to be kidding me.
Well, let me just go over some of these things, and I'm going to cheat off this paper because I don't memorize these numbers here. But basically they're talking about, and this was more or less on the EMF side, and you got to also add into, remember, we got a lot of toxins. When you deal with toxins, they like to deposit in fat. Well, what's the brain made out of? Mostly fat. So a lot of this.
So fathead's got a new meaning, right?
There you go.
Okay.
But for example, this is some information that came through, and it's basically ADHD since 1990 has been an 819% increase.
What?
Alzheimer's disease, 299% increase. Autism, 2,000% increase. Bipolar disease in youth, 10,000% increase. Celiac disease, about 1,100% increase. Chronic fatigue, 11,000% increase. Depression, 280% increase. Diabetes, 305% increase. Fibromyalgia, 7,000. Lupus, 780, and osteoarthritis, 449%. Sleep apnea, 430%. Where the hell is all this stuff going?
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the why? I mean, are we so different? That goes back to asking doctors when I lecture all the time, and I lead with this question often, particularly guys who've been in practice 3 decades, plus. And I said, are patients easier to treat today than they were years ago? And
Absolutely
invariably,
not.
They say, no, they're much more difficult to treat. People don't respond the same way. People are sicker. This is what we're talking about, this environmental impact, and that's where these things are coming from. Things that we're exposed to from inoculations and vaccines, and the data is there. You just have to look at it. Let's go back to that lymphatic system just for a half a second. Years ago, medicine said that the brain had no lymph system.
Correct.
It could not drain toxin, period.
Because they said it was a closed-off system,
right.
But the thing is they also had a system called the lymphatic system you mentioned before, which is actually there in the brain system, which eventually gets through the circulatory system and deposits into the lymphatics and gets out of the system.
Sure, and in applied kinesiology, we know that every muscle has an organ system, and there's one that relates to the brain, and there's a lymphatic reflex, and that lymphatic we call it Chapman's reflex,
right,
that actually has an effect. And now, 5 years ago, we talked about that the studies came out, and you told me that it was University of Virginia.
Yeah.
It's like crazy, right?
Yeah. It's like all of a sudden,
now we know.
And they had peer review articles before that saying there was no such thing as the lymphatic system for the brain. And then just by theory and what we were dealing with applied kinesiology you were talking about, we knew there had to be something there. This is an interesting thing because I think things stack. And where we're talking about lymphatics like in the brain and where things like for example, we got all this junk that we need to get out of our system and it's fat deposits. Now, on top of that, we got EMFs that might keep us awake at night. So now we don't sleep. And then you stack that on top of something where, wait a minute, at the brain, they're talking about 60% of our brain actually kind of shrinks down and washes out. It flushes out. And you have to get deep sleep to get that.
Yeah,
but now you can't get that.
So a lot of us that don't sleep well or deeply, we're in trouble, right?
That's a toxification effect. That's another thing that causes, again, an inflammatory element that comes up. So you've got to look at your whole lifestyle. This is when I think about things in regards to there's your genes and then there's your lifestyle. And in our lifestyles, we're causing some major problems. Walking around, even physically to chemically, even if you use the cell phone, there's a number of things right there that we're talking about with EMF situations. The posture's bad because that causes problems, and you go fixed positions, that's going to change ligament settings there on a physical basis. And then you get the EMFs on top of it, and it's kind of like there's digital dimension. There's all these other things that are added, and everything stacks.
And
it stacks.
And you have people who are lazy, and I use that. They don't get out. They're stuck to their devices. The remote is clicking, but their body's not moving. And we know that the lymphatic system as well, needs motion and breathing and water to clean. And if you sit and you're not moving, ain't cleaning.
Right. And then it's the stagnation of fluids. Okay, well, that's a good one for infection.
It is. Petri dish.
And Petri dish. And deep vein thrombosis and all these kind of things that play a part with it. So it's interesting. One of the things we're going back to talk about the exposures, the one term I hate is trace. They go like, we use a trace of something. But again, you're stacking this stuff. 80,000, 100,000 different types of chemicals. There's no way we have a examination or a test or study that's been done that measures all those together.
No, and here's the situation.
But they take it isolate. They isolate it.
Yes. I run tests. You run tests on hair analysis, which is not the most opportune way of measuring toxic metals. But if you look at it specifically, then you can really draw some conclusions. So people come back and say, oh, my mercury, my arsenic, my lead, my barium, all those things they're within the given parameters. But what they don't realize, and this comes from physicians as well, that they don't realize that these things stack on top of each other. Yeah. So if you stack, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of the other thing, and all of a sudden now you've got a toxic pattern that is causing neurodegenerative changes straight across the board.
Yeah, and you brought up hair analysis. One of the things is there was a study in Germany which they actually had kids exposed to mercury, and they were the ones who had a diagnostic criteria of being autistic, and other ones that were not. Guess who had the mercury in the findings?
The ones that didn't.
The one that didn't have autism.
Yep.
So that means the autistic kids can't move the stuff out.
Exactly.
And so they were looking at the hair analysis being, this really doesn't work. I said, no, it depends on what you're looking at. And if they're not moving it out, it's not going to go into the hair.
It's an interesting look at what is acceptable and not acceptable, but the problem is that so many of us have been told that, let's watch it. It's not going to be a big deal. These things happen to everybody. Well, Dr. Scott just told you the exponential numbers of an increase in so many different disease processes. And a little bit later, we're going to touch on, we know that there's diabetes related to the brain, and that's an area that I've had a lot of interest in over the last several years. But nevertheless, 888-630-9625. My guest in studio, your host this coming Wednesday evening, the 17th of July, because you want it that way, is Dr. Scott Lamp, and we're going to be talking about this toxic soup that you all live in. It's important that you understand that so much of what's going on is a result directly of exposures to our environment, the foods that we eat, the water that we drink, the different electromagnetic pieces that are around us. And if we don't do something about it, you can go to every physician on the planet, and if they don't get it, you're not going to be helped. This is an opportunity to find out how you can help yourself. All you got to do is RoselleCare.com. That's RoselleCare.com. RoselleCare.com, or simply call the office at 703-698-7117 and tell our staff you'd like to attend. This is our gift to you. Before we go on, I want to go to the phones because we've had somebody that's been very, very patient. John, thank you for holding. How can I help you?
Thank you, Doctor. Just fascinating program, per usual.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you if you were sort of up on, I was diagnosed with a dilation of an aortic sinus of the Valsalva, and they put me on Carvedil to lower the blood pressure. I'm wondering if you could add to perhaps a program or...
Yeah, I think both Scott and I will jump in on this a little bit. So just let me ask you a question. How are you overweight?
Yeah, probably 25 pounds over. Okay,
so when it comes to aortic dilation of any sort whatsoever, what happens is that once it reaches a certain level, at that level, it becomes an aneurysm, and it's no longer just a dilation. So the problem is that is this thing soft where it can, with a little bit of pressure, is it going to pop? And if you pop an aortic artery, you don't have a lot of time. It's done. So you have to know what the parameters are. So, John, what I'm going to have you do is just hold for a second. We're coming up to a break, and I think both Dr. Scott and I have a comment on it. But there's some things that you need to know about, you need to find out about, and then you need to protect yourself. And this thing is something that you need to watch. So just hang in there, and we'll answer that much more completely, if you will. We're coming up to a point where we have to take a short break and listen to those who bring you Dr. Tom Roselle Live. My guest in studio, Dr. Scott Lamp. Welcome back, everybody. Dr. Tom Roselle here. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. We are in studio, 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-9625. My guest, Dr. Scott Lamp, your host this Wednesday evening, the 17th, is going to be talking about your toxic environment. we decided to expand the platform that Sue and I were talking about last week, because so many of you said, I want to be there, I want to be there. So this is your opportunity. Make sure that you register, go online, go to rosellecare.com. That's rosellecare.com. And register. Just click down. Remember, this is our gift to you. We want you to have all the information that you can possibly can. And we're going to get back into the program, but we do have John holding. John, are you still there?
I am, Doctor. Thanks.
Okay, so John, we've got this aortic dilation that you have, and dilation advances to a point of aneurysm once it exceeds 50% of its normal size. And once you get to that place, now you've got a little bit better problem. So, across the board, first of all, you got to watch this thing. It has to be monitored with ultrasound and so forth. You have to make sure that this thing doesn't grow. I asked you about your weight. You said a little overweight. You got to get that weight off, and you have to strengthen the abdominals. Basically your core. There's some nutrients that will help. This is not something that is going to by itself be a standalone, but things like vitamin C will help the musculature around the aorta to become a little less susceptible to it, to expansion. Most aneurysms, based on the literature that's out there, they grow very slowly, and about a third of a centimeter a year, but even still, and that's under those that are going to expand. But you have to make sure that you take some proactive steps to begin to manage this and change it.
How is your sugar handling?
I don't use sugar.
How is it in the past?
Anything. It would be just fructose from fruit or some juices.
Well, so for juices, the juices are not going to be. It's going to be compacted sugar that's when you're drinking water. If you're drinking a juice, you're not getting a lot of the benefit from the fruit. You're better off eating the fruit than you're actually eating from just take a whole bunch of like an orange juice or something like that, because all it is you're getting hit with sugar. Sugar causes some things called a little bit of insulin resistance. What happens also with insulin resistance, you don't get potassium in the system, which actually takes pressure off your system and actually can help lower your blood pressure a little bit too. So that's one of those things that resistance, not only doesn't sugar get in, but also potassium doesn't get in. So you lose flexibility of that artery. Do you eat things or eat fried foods at all?
Very, very rarely.
Try to stay out of that, because what happens is that the fried food, if you take a protein combined with a sugar and you overcook it, you can affect collagen, which is actually what we're talking about, the elasticity of these tissues, and they can give you more vulnerability to your arteries. Also, hernias are also possibly sometimes associated with that. So that's something you might want to consider there.
I have one of those abdominal ones.
Excuse me?
I have one of those abdominal hernias.
And that could be it. So that could be from past history of what things you've been doing to yourself.
So, the things that you need to do, John, is you've got to, just as supportive you can. You want to make sure your blood pressure is down, but you can, often you can do that naturally. Blood pressure can be affected by the nervous system. It can be affected by energetic pathways, some of the things that we're talking about with toxic elements in our environment. You want to make sure that your mineralization, your vitamin C, your magnesium, your potassium levels are adequate. You need somebody to help you and coach you and make sure that they can define it properly. The weight's got to come down. If you do those things and you monitor this, I think you'll be surprised that you can evoke some changes. And, obviously, in an enlarged aorta, if it becomes too expansive, there's a real desperate problem there so you don't want to neglect this thing at all. But there's a lot that you can do to help yourself.
There's also some of the blood values you might want to take a look at, what your homocysteine values are, because what's happening is that's kind of going to show how much can be possibly damaging. It gives you an idea about what's the damage that's going on to those arteries. Fibrinogen is another one. There's a couple of things that you can take in your blood work. Fibrinogen is C-reactive protein, uric acid levels. Go overall, what's my inflammatory stack that's happening to the body that you really want to take a look at.
And one of the things I would also encourage you to do to keep the inflammatory reactions down, just something very simple, is go get yourself some very alkalizing water. You can get them at Mom's or Whole Foods or any of the other stores like that, and drink at least a couple liters of that every day. And that will make a difference in the initial stages of bringing that down. But you need some support mechanism. So, John, I hope that's helpful to you. I appreciate your call.
Over to your seminar.
I'm sorry, John?
Thank you very much, and I look forward to the good Dr. Scott's seminar on Wednesday.
Thank you, sir.
Good. We'll be happy to have you with us. 888-630-9 9625. That's how you find us. Scott, we've got about a minute to kind of talk about what we're going to do in the second half.
Well, in the second half, we're gonna let's do a little quiz. I think I'm gonna take a little quiz, and I'm gonna see how many people are, and then how many times. Let's say I got about 13 questions here, and let's see how many times you can say yes to it, and I'll give you the quick answer at the end.
We got 50 seconds, so hurry up.
Okay, can I do that now?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's gonna be kind of hard, but we'll talk about some of the things we'll cover in the class, and I think we'll also talk about maybe some detoxification things that can be done. This is not all about gloom and doom, because there's so many things out in the environment that can create some problems. We want to see what some answers would actually be a better way to look at it.
Well, I'll let you do the checklist when we come back right after the break. My guest in studio, Dr. Scott Lamp. He'll be your host, your presenter this Wednesday evening, the 17th of July at the Roselle Center for Healing in Fairfax. We're right off the National Capital Beltway. Real quick. I mean, it's like less than a third of a mile, so you'll find it's real easy. Give us a call. We'll be happy to have you as our guest. Don't go away. We're coming up to the halfway mark. We'll be right back.
Dr. Tom Roselle Live continues now on 105.9 FM, WMAL.
Welcome back, everybody. Dr. Tom Roselle here. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. A beautiful Washington day, albeit a little warm again. But you know what? It's a whole lot better than real cold again. And this is spoken from a guy who's, from the western part of, New York State with 250 inches of snow a year. And yeah, well, never mind. We won't go there. I love it here. I'm not moving anywhere. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-9625. That's how you find us here. My guest in studio, Dr. Scott Lamp, and he will be your host, your presenter this Wednesday evening, 17th, at the Roselle Center for Healing in Fairfax. And we are doing basically an expanded presentation, because so many of you wanted and said, I wasn't here. I want to listen to this lecture on environmental toxins and what's going on and how it's affecting me and so forth. And it's amazing that what we don't know will hurt us. Dr. Scott, before we broke for the break, you said that there was a whole lot of symptomological representations that people don't even think about. It has to do with this crazy thing we're talking about.
Let's take a quick little quiz. And so just the following. Just kind of click on in your brain, like how many times you say yes to these following ones. Do you feel tired or fatigued at all during the day? Feeling dizzy, foggy-headed, or having problems just doing concentration? That's a separate one. The third one is, do you take coffee, cigarettes, candy, or soda just to get yourself up and running? And number 4, do you eat fast, fatty, processed, or fried foods? We just talked about that with the last person that was on. Do your bowels move less than twice a day? Or in a separate question, do you have intestinal gas or any bloating or constipation? Diarrhea? Do you experience headaches or yeast infections? So another separate question. Do you live with or near air and water pollution? I guess we have a little bit around this area. Do you experience general headaches, pains, or arthritis? Another question. Do you feel food allergies or skin problems? Blotches on the skin? Do you have those brown patches, or you don't have really healthy-looking skin, let alone psoriasis or eczema? Do you experience frequent back pains or sinus problems? Are you exposed to chemicals and sedatives or taking stimulants? And do you rarely exercise to feel sluggish or overweight? If you had about 3 yeses on any of those, that's definitely a toxic environment in your body. And I don't even include some of the ones that you think about. Do I eat organic foods? Because, again, you're going to have things that have less. Now, organic foods would be a yes, would be a positive thing. If you said no, that would work against you. Are you using mostly water, vinegar, or baking soda or borax to kind of do some of your cleaning in the house? Which probably a majority of you don't. And so if you said yes, that's actually a benefit. Do you have any shower filters? Are you using a shower filter to get some of the chlorine that comes out from that and some of the other chemicals? If you have a yes to that, that's a benefit. Have you installed a new filter in your house for the last 6 months? How often do we forget about that thing on our furnace that usually associates with that, especially for heating and air conditioning? If that's a yes and you are doing that, good for you. Do you have shampoos made mostly of water, herbs, plants, or vitamins? That would be a yes if you do those. Probably not for most of us. Do you use detergent that don't have chemical fragrances and stabilizers and color fasteners? Okay, and have you done a cleansing program before? Because everybody, you even are healthy, should do some types of detoxification.
You know, what you've done is you've paralyzed our entire audience.
Yep.
They're just sitting there saying, really? Oh, my God.
Yep.
You know, the majority of people, and we wonder why we're sick, and we don't have the energy we want, and we say to ourselves, or people say to us, what do you expect? You're getting older. And the problem is that there's not. I watched.
That's a cop out. I mean, getting older. You remember, every time I come on this show, I talk about blue zones. I always go back to blue zones.
It's crazy.
Go back to people in Japan, Sardinia, Italy. Go to Greece. Go to Costa Rica. Go to these guys that live higher ratio over 100 years old. They're not on medications. They're living and they're having worthwhile lives. They're still functional, age 90. They're flexible. They're eating plant-based diets. They are having a. They have strong family ties. Their emotion situations, I mean, actually the stress is low. They're eating
all
protein, fish-based diets. That's the overlap of all those guys.
You know, my great aunt, my father's aunt in Sicily, my father's village, she died at age 100, and she was totally intact. This is years and years ago, right? And how she passed away was one night. She was cooking for everybody. She was there. She was with some of the people. They had a big room where they met. And she got up, she cleared the table, and she said she was tired. So she kissed everybody at the table. She went to the sofa, she lied down on the sofa, and she was gone. Yeah. And up until that point, she was able to function and do. We don't do that here.
The candle in our lives should be when the wick is out and the wax is gone, it's done, instead of just agonizing through our life.
Yeah, and all we have to do is walk into a senior citizen center or nursing environment, and we see how many people do that. Not so many. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-9625. That's how you find us here. Dr. Scott Lamp is my guest, your host this Wednesday evening. And we're talking about your environmental toxins and all the symptoms that are associated with it. You know, it's not okay. You know, Scott, I want to get into that brain, that neurodegenerative, because as you said on the way up, you know, the neurodegenerative conditions, everything from Parkinson's to Alzheimer's to dementia problems, you know, to, you mentioned ALS as well, are exponentially on the rise. We're talking about thousands of percentages in increase. That's not okay. It tells you that there's a problem. And we got into this thing called the lymphatic system, which is really a lymphatic drainage of the brain.
Right.
The problem is it's not working, and we're seeing degradation coming down. There's several proteins that, you know, the brain has that are normal. You know, even, you know, it's when these things get out of control and they start being affected by other things, cause problems. You mentioned tau protein. Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, that accumulates. I mean, that's accumulation's been associated with Alzheimer's. And the thing is, if you're not flushing, and again, it's like, which one is it? Is it I'm not sleeping or the toxins that you have there? But that's the thing that backs up that they're looking for, and I think right now I need to take another research look at it to see where they are for measuring that tau protein. But it kind of flushes it out when you have a chance to sleep. And you know, I think in the United States, I think you know, you got to go. That's the one thing I hate about electronics so much, is not just from the EMF. It's just like we got to get the job done. We have everything now. I have the potential to do everything really quickly, and if I don't, somebody else is going to do it. And so you get the stress mechanism that associates with those machines.
You know, there's an interesting article that was released in the British Medical Journal, and that was this last year, and talking about the lymphatic system. And, you know, they said this newly discovered, you know, pseudo-lymphatic system in the brain, and it was actually published, and you said that the research came out in the University of Virginia back in 2014.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, they went on and they said it's critical in its removal of interstitial metabolic waste products.
Right.
And, you know, if we don't remove those things, they build up. Not only are they toxin and they cause, and we were talking about the high levels of inflammation and subsequently receptor sites that are no longer available, and that's a symptom, but it causes the body to deteriorate and destroy itself.
Right, and it's just eating ourselves from the inside out. So I think that's one of the things is it's an important thing to, again, the stacking of multiple things, and the way to kind of fight this, and you're going to learn from the classes, what are the ways we can fight this to kind of back off some of those things, take some things off the stack, and give us more of a fighting chance.
Well, in the presence of these things that we're talking about, particularly in the brain, let's talk about the lymphatic just for a second more. If these toxins build up, these interstitial toxins, the brain actually shrinks. The capacity for the brain to function is no longer there. Right. We know the brain is plastic. It can rewire itself like crazy. But if you have this onslaught of all this nonsense that's out there because of environmental toxins, because of the way that we treat ourselves, the lack of activity, the inability to do what we need to do.
Barrier breakdown.
Exactly.
Okay. And so I think one of the things we start seeing, barriers start to break down. One thing we haven't talked about, and I think just to make it very, very simple, when you talk about toxins, and Tom, we talked about this on the ride in today, it really is if the body can communicate, through the blood system and make connections with the hormones the correct way, and you can get food to where it needs to get to, the nervous system works the way it's supposed to, the lymphatic clears what it's supposed to clear, the cerebral spinal fluid moves to places where it needs to move to, the acupuncture meridian points need to move and communicate. If you can't communicate, inflammation is a great one for blocking communication across the board. And inflammation comes in so many different forms and sizes and things. It's really a blocking of communication. Our health has to deal with communication and be able to communicate from one thing to the other. If you just do the basic concept in the family and the people don't communicate, it's not good. In the business, it doesn't communicate, it's not good. In the body, it's not good if it doesn't communicate and direct things. And you try to get some of those things that block out of the system. That's where we're talking about, at least on the detoxification process, and how it directs things like, how do I get things out of my skin? Because sweat is one of the ways to get it out of the body. How do we get things turned into water soluble? Fat soluble is where all this stuff sticks into, the body works really hard to get into water soluble so it can get out in like sweat or in your good breathing ability and stuff. Getting it out in fecal matter, getting it out in urine, getting this stuff out is really, really, really important.
You know, it's an interesting concept. I'm playing with it as you're talking. These receptor site barriers, if you will, the inability for the body to do what it's supposed to do naturally. This key and lock situation.
Endocrine disruptors, as you're talking about, right?
And these things get in there, and you go to something simple called insulin resistance. Mm-hmm. That's what diabetes is, right? Mm-hmm. It's an insulin inability to transport blood sugar into tissue. And here we have the same type of concept going on. Everybody's afraid of Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases. But you touched upon it earlier. And that neurodegenerative state often is simply a result of a insulin-like inability. The brain needs its primary food as what? Blood sugar.
Right. And it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It can't get it in because of these inflammatory walls, this resistance pattern, this inability to link in, and now we have what? Diabetes of the brain.
Yeah. And even talking about, when you talk about insulin, any hormone can have resistance. Any hormone could be this. And what happens is think of it kind of like the cell is like a triangle. There's a triangle or notch in the cell, and the boat is triangular so it fits in. Well, neuroendocrine disruptors, neuro means of nerve, endocrine means of hormones, come in and replace the hormone. And they can either turn it on more or turn it off completely or make it just go slowly or destroy it. And all of a sudden you don't have that reaction. So hence, communication is not there anymore. So what does the body do? It gets angry. And sometimes it's kind of like when I'm looking at you, Tom, if you closed your eyes and cover your ears, like a lot of times when I say something, you do that to me.
I do that
anyway.
at the office all the time. I know.
But when you do that, then I get a little bit more irritated, or you get irritated at me for not responding. So the body starts creating more and more emergency-type pathways to try to push it, which creates more problems. If you have some weight problems...
Well, that's when I get up and walk in my office and close the door.
And you double latch it. But it's interesting. We just went to there was a seminar just recently we went to on hormone elements, and they were talking about a lot of times it's not perceived or seen as this progesterone resistance. And what happens is you don't see it in the blood flow. You see it in the symptoms, but the blood flow looks it's fine, but there's still a resistance. And so basically the person is progesterone deprived.
Sure, and that's how you have to explain it to a patient. Here you have this pool of stuff, but this pool of stuff then has to be transported.
Right. And
it's not getting in.
And there's no communication, and that's the thing. What can you do to get the communication lines going?
This Wednesday evening, we're going to expand this topic exponentially, and who better than Dr. Scott Lamp, right? Mm-hmm. Most of you have heard this guy from time to time on the program, or you've been to the office. It's unbelievable the amount of information, teasing this man about, walking away with, too much information. But, the thing of it is, I learned from this guy, and he comes up with nuances. I said, where'd you come up with that? It's because he's always, always, always looking for data to help his patients. This is your opportunity to really understand what it is that you can do for yourself. All you need to do is go to rosellcare.com this Wednesday evening, July 17th. This is our gift to you. Give us a call, register, do it online. We'll call you. We'll make sure that we confirm your attendance. Let's go to the phones. Peter, thank you for calling. How can I help you?
Yeah, hi. I have a friend. She's a young woman. I'm guessing she's probably in her late 20s, who is coping with depression. And I presume she's taking medication for it, but it doesn't seem to be helping. In fact, just let me quote a bit from one of her Facebook posts. My life is falling apart, and I feel out of control. And she goes on to say, okay, I keep thinking that things will get better from here, but no, just more stuff piles up. Things getting worse before they get better. When does the worst end? So I told her, without naming you by name.
Peter, I got a minute. So, question.
I asked if I said, have you considered any non-drug naturopathic treatment? And she said no, but I'd consider it. So before I give her your name and number, is there anything non-drug that you can use?
Okay, let's talk about that. We got less than a minute, so let me go
fly with it, Tom.
Go ahead. So, any kind of depression can come from what we were talking about with a diabetic or a hypoglycemic reaction. There was a book that was written years ago called Sugar Blues, and it talked about what happens when blood sugars bounce, and when they come down hard, you're in that state of depression. Unfortunately, they go up and they come down, but that up is never that high, and that low gets lower, and so subsequently they stay in a chronic place of depression. So there's a lot of things that can be done, but you have to find out, a lot of different things. You have to look at this brain thing that we're talking about, the brain barrier. We have to look at blood sugar metabolism. And so forth.
And there's a lot of different things. So that's why I let Tom really take this quickly, because the thing is, there's a lot of different elements. You got with the sugar, the gut lining, there's the neurotransmitters where they need to be at.
Absolutely.
And so there's a lot of different things. It's hard to diagnose it just on the spot.
But you can look at it from multi-dimension. There may be things that can be done, because you're talking about that gut. We talked about the second brain. The majority, 90% of your neurotransmitters are produced in the intestinal tract. We're coming up to a break. I hope that helps just a little bit, but yes, there may be a possibility. Scott, don't go away.
Okay.
Washington's Mall, 105.9 FM, WMAL.
Welcome back, everybody. Dr. Tom Roselle here. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle live, as you do every Sunday at high noon on the Eastern Seaboard. And those of you who are around the planet that listen to us either online or, live wherever you are, thank you. We appreciate your support, and we try to do this for you and give you all the data that we possibly can. And again, we try to serve those who serve us, and the military seems to have found us, and we try to continue to give you the data that you deserve. My guest in studio, Dr. Scott Lamp, your host, your presenter, this coming Wednesday evening, the 17th of July, 7 p.m. at the Roselle Center for Healing in Fairfax, right off the National Capital Beltway. Real easy to find. It's Route 50, Arlington Boulevard. You exit, and we're about a third of a mile from there. It's not hard to get there. So please join us. I promise you'll learn far more than you ever thought possible. Dr. Scott, let's get into it a little bit and what you're going to be doing this Wednesday.
Well, we just left that last person there was really quickly when she was talking about, they were talking about the thing with the depression. There's an interesting book that came out, The Second Brain. Dr. Michael Gershon was talking about, just by accident, he was trying to heal up the gut, and he found that those people who had, the 70% of the people who had depression actually got over their depression after cleaning up the gut. Just the point I just wanted to make there. Yeah,
it's important that you understand that the health, for so many of us, doctors who are in the world that we're in, we look at the body from the gut out. If your intestinal tract is not working the way it's supposed to, no matter what happens, you never can truly allow the body to resolve any condition that's there. That's where your toxins are. That's where everything's absorbed from the system. So we look at the nervous system and we look at that intestinal system. Those are the two things that you have to pay attention to in any condition. You name the condition. In our opinion, if you don't go there, you got nothing.
Right. So as for the class that's coming up, I want everybody who's coming to the class bring their cell phones, because we're going to do some demonstrations about how the cell phone has an effect on your body and how to take care of it. There's ways to be able to do that. We're going to spend some time, EMFs. We're going to talk really about detoxification pathways. We're going to talk about some of the things that really cause some of the problems. There's a ton of stuff, and that's why we've had two classes or two episodes or things today, or for dealing with the toxins that are out there. There's a ton of that. We want to find out what you can do about it. What can you get to make things work a little bit better? And we have some of that information for you, and it's going to be a very decent class for you to attend.
It's an exciting class. It's one that all of us need to know a whole lot more about, because we're living in an environment that we're exposed and susceptible to so many different things. And if we're not careful, if we're not judicious, if we don't take our own health seriously and take control of it, as I've said in my book, health is a do-it-yourself program. It truly is. Mm-hmm. And particularly in this, nobody's going to take care of you except for yourself.
Right.
And you need to really know what steps you can take and how to be proactive, because, the thing that really gets to me sometimes, it said, well, my insurance company won't pay for that procedure. Well, yeah, but your insurance company maintains your place of health at a certain level. They're not talking about cure. It's in your hands. You have to get the data, your information, so you can apply it to yourself to take action steps, to be proactive, to move yourself into a much better place. Nothing better than to start with, how do you handle your environment?
Right.
We talked a little bit, a couple of weeks ago, and people who are in broadcasting, in radio stations, like day in and day out, people who are in television stations, people who are in areas where they're constantly getting microwave, I'll call it irritation.
There's G5
right?
going on now.
And G5. These things will cause increased exponential production of symptoms, diseases, so forth. I can't tell you how many friends I know that have been in that environment that have passed away because of cancers and things of that nature. It's not okay. Folks, you've got to learn how to do this. This is an opportunity this Wednesday evening, the 17th. Be there. Listen to one of the best as far as I'm concerned. I have a privilege and an honor working with this man. He's amazing. We're coming up to a break, and unfortunately...
Are you dental phobic? Do you neglect your dental health because of fear and anxiety? A beautiful smile begins with exceptional dental care, and you can trust in the expertise of Soft Touch Dental Care and Dr. Michael Chung. Soft Touch Dental Care is unlike any dentist office you'll ever experience. Their warm and welcoming environment is designed to soothe fears and anxiety the moment you arrive, and they're especially pleased to pamper their honored guest patients. Dr. Michael Chung is a professional and leading expert in all areas of comprehensive dentistry, including cosmetic, sedation, neuromuscular, TMJ, and implant dentistry. Offering state-of-the-art technology, Dr. Chung can give you the smile of your dreams. Arrange for a complimentary consultation today with Dr. Michael Chung and experience the expertise that makes Dr. Michael Chung so unique. Call 703-319-6990. That's 703-319-6990. Or visit bestinsmile.com. That's bestinsmile.com.
This is Dr. Tom Roselle. After 38 years of practice and almost 1 million patient visits, the Roselle Center for Healing knows what works and knows how you can take control of your health and wellness. My team of doctors practice 21st century integrative medicine. Whether you suffer from chronic pain and fatigue, allergies, or headaches, we can help. Take charge of your health before it's too late. Make an appointment today. Call 703-698-7117 or visit online at rosellecare.com. This is Dr. Tom Roselle, author of Ageless Health. Health is a do-it-yourself program. My book, now also available in audio version, is a step-by-step program of how to take control of your health and wellness without drugs or needless surgery. You have the capacity to change your health and level of well-being. Take control of your health today and order Health is a do-it-yourself program.
For more information and to order, please visit agelesshealthbook.com. That's agelesshealthbook.com.
Breast cancer is a major health risk to all women. It can silently grow uninterrupted for years. The Thermography Centers of Fairfax reminds all women to conduct monthly and annual breast exams. Consider a thermography scan from the Thermography Centers as an adjunct to your routine breast exams. Digital infrared thermal imaging is safe and non-invasive. For more information and to schedule an appointment, call 703-520-7591 or visit thermographycenters.com.